Good evening, Moss Valley Chiropractic viewers. This is Dr. Moss. I'm so glad some of you remembered to make it to the Brain Fit Memory Workshop. I've been using that joke a lot here today, telling my patients, make sure you don't forget. It's a good dad joke. I know my staff appreciates a good dad joke from me. But I am here to talk tonight about a serious subject about cognitive decline, Alzheimer's, dementia. It is something that's getting worse. It's becoming more prevalent. So I felt it was very important for us to start taking a preventative look into cause, effect, and what can we do to prevent these things from happening starting now. Don't wait until you have a problem before you start taking care of that problem. These things can be prevented if we start in childhood, but it's never too late to begin. So a couple things we're going to be talking about. I'm going to talk about what Alzheimer's is and dementia. We're going to go through a couple preventative measures when it comes to eating differently, how to exercise, and what kind of things you can find in the environment that can actually exacerbate this problem. So let's start off by talking about Alzheimer's and dementia. So Alzheimer's and dementia. So dementia is a broad term. That's an overall term that's used to describe like a group of symptoms associated with declined thinking skills, memory loss, those types of things. Alzheimer's, and some people call it old-timers or old-timers, it's Alzheimer's disease. This is not a normal part of aging. Alzheimer's is a degenerative disease of the brain where they've basically narrowed it down to proteins called beta amyloid proteins, which causing plaque inside the brain. That and tangles, they're called tangles, which are basically twisted fibers called tau. And what they realize is that as most people age, Alzheimer's patients tend to develop far more predictable patterns of these plaques. So they are common as you get older, but those that have Alzheimer's have a far more predictable pattern. They usually begin with areas of memory before spreading to the other parts of the brain. So you'll see degeneration and loss of memory a lot sooner. Scientists think they actually block the communication among nerve endings and start to disrupt processes that are needed to survive. And what do these look like in the brain? On the left, you can see a healthy brain, and you see down there's a healthy neuron, and that's what your nerves do look like, and that's how they communicate with each other. But on the right side, you'll see plaques, and that's the buildup of the beta amyloid proteins. And then you'll see the tangles where they are getting tangled together, and it's causing that block of communication along the nerve endings, and that will eventually disrupt processes that we need to actually survive. And eventually this can cause nerve cells to die. And when the nerve cells start to die, we can lose our memory will start to fail. As it starts to spread, our personalities will change, and we'll get to the point where it's difficult to even carry out our daily activities. And if anybody has lived or cared for somebody with Alzheimer's or dementia, you can only you understand the devastating effects of this. This is one of probably the scariest things that I could ever think of happening, because they become a shell of a person, the shell of who they used to be. They don't remember who you are. It really is a hard thing to watch. I can only imagine if it was happening to you, but it's just not a good thing. And I really want to help us prevent this from happening. But it's getting worse. It's getting worse. Right now, if you're 65 years or older, there's a 1 in 8 chance of you suffering from a significant cognitive decline. That's a lot. By age 80, it's 1 in 2 will suffer from Alzheimer's disease or even another type of dementia. That's too much, and it's getting worse. And as they start to rise, what we are realizing is that the younger family members are the ones that are paying for it. They're paying for it financially. I mean, the cost of a good senior home right now is at a minimum of $3,600 a month, up to over $7,000 a month. That is an extreme amount of money for good care for your family member, which is all you ever want, and they're not even know that it's happening. And it's just, like I said, these things are getting worse. They're not only is the younger part of your family going to foot the financial bill, but they're also going to pay emotionally. This is never something I would want to burden my family with. So I'm going to do everything I can in my power to make sure it does not happen. And that's what I want to teach you all here tonight. So let's start with the 5 early warning signs of a declining brain. One is you forget where you put things. You forget where you put your keys. You forget names. You forget faces, important due dates, appointments. You have difficulty remembering conversations. Did I already tell you this? or you already told me this story, Dad. You hear those things sometimes, or you forget something you just read and you have to read it over again. You forget what you wanted to say mid-sentence. I've had a patient tell me once that she was driving to my office and then she didn't make it to her appointment. I asked her, we called her when she missed her appointment, what happened? She goes, I got halfway here and I forgot how to get to your office. So I just went home. And I knew that something was wrong at that point. And this woman actually ended up passing away of Alzheimer's. You stumble on words, suffering from lapses in concentration, being scatterbrained, or you experience regular brain fog. And that's where you really just can't think clearly. Your thought processes are slowed or murky. Now, there's some of you out there going, uh-oh, I have all those things right now, and I'm only 30 years old, right? That doesn't mean that you have Alzheimer's. That doesn't mean you have dementia. What it probably means is that you're stressed, because sometimes stress is actually the problem. Prolonged stress leads to anxiety, depression, poor decision-making, insomnia, and memory loss. So a lot of those things we just talked about can be because your body and your brain is just overloaded. I mean, think about the chaos that's ensuing in the world right now. Whether you watch the news or don't watch the news, which I don't, I know these things are happening. I know the world is going crazy right now. And no matter whether you think it's going to pass, not pass, and how much clout you put into it, the fact is it's weighing on us. And I don't know if you've noticed, I know I have, my memories have been a little bit less than stellar lately. I've forgotten things. I'm looking for my keys while they're in my hand. I've done these things because our stress levels are just higher right now. And when your stress levels are higher, that can tax your brain and make it feel like you have cognitive decline. Prolonged stress can actually cause your brain to shrink. And of course, that's awful for us. But proper sleep, proper diet, proper movement, prayer, meditation, nervous system checkups are all designed to reduce stress, and that can help us decrease that cognitive decline. So stress, like I said, can kill brain cells. Overexposure to stress hormones can actually cause memory impairment, as well as long-term brain damage, which can lead to depression, dementia, Alzheimer's, and even Parkinson's disease. So, people say stress kills. It is not. It is a fact. I mean, this is something that is true, and we need to do things that we can do whatever we can to de-stress as much as possible. Although most of the brain actually stops growing by adulthood, new nerve cells are continually generated in the hippocampus, where they're essential for learning. And learning is so important. I don't know who told me this once, but they said, if you're not growing, you're dying. And I absolutely feel that. When I go into, coast mode in my life, when I'm not learning a new hobby or reading a book or learning a new technique or learning something new in my office or learning something new to present, I feel like my brain does shrink a little bit. I don't feel as alive. I almost feel a little bit depressed because I am not constantly learning. And if you're not pouring into your brain new information, constantly doing things to stimulate brain and brain cell growth, you are going to shrink down and it's going to start to die, and that can lead to cognitive decline. So what we've determined is that there's basically 5 routes to Alzheimer's disease. And I'm sure there's more than that, but from what I've determined, there are about 5, and these are the 5 that I really want to focus on for you guys tonight. Number 1 is what they call type 3 diabetes. So faulty insulin signaling is an underlying cause of insulin resistance. And that typically leads to type 2 diabetes, which means you're eating way too many carbohydrates, way too much sugar, and you're overloading your pancreas. It can't keep up, which leads to insulin resistance. And that can, like I said, lead to type 2 diabetes, which is awful for us, of course. But researchers have actually found that when insulin signaling in the brain is disrupted, it can result in dementia, and hence the suggestion that Alzheimer's may be a brain-related form of diabetes. So even mild elevation blood sugar, like a level around 105 to 110, is actually associated with an elevated risk of dementia. So too much sugar in our diet is a problem. Gut dysfunction. So gut dysfunction. If your gut is not happy, you cannot be happy. Most people think that serotonin, which is our happy neurotransmitter, is only created in our brain, and that's not true. I believe it's between 60 to 80% of serotonin, your happy neurotransmitter, is actually created in your gut. So if your gut is not happy, you are going to be depressed. You are not going to be happy. Cognitive decline will start to set in. So what causes gut dysfunction? It's typically caused by a combination of excess sugars and processed foods. Too much sugar, again, disrupts the probiotics, the good bacteria that live in our gut, and processed foods also destroys it. Antibiotic exposure, whether you're taking it as a medication or from the food that we eat. If you're not eating organic chicken, they're full of antibiotics. Drinking non-organic milk, full of antibiotics, or the medicine itself. Genetically engineered grains, which create foreign proteins, and of course, pesticide exposure. So all these things, just by cleaning up the food that you're putting into your gut, you can help your brain function better. I mean, it's not that difficult to make these changes. This is a good thing. The next one is an imbalanced ratio of omega-3s to omega-6 fatty acids. And we talked about that a few months ago when we talked about our Heart Strong workshop about inflammation. And we're supposed to eat omega-3s and we're supposed to eat omega-6s. And they're called essential fatty acids because these are the fats that our body cannot create. We need to get them from our diet. Now, how much are we supposed to get? Well, it's all about the ratio. The normal ratio, the proper ratio for our body to function properly is omega-3s to omega-6s in a 1-to-1 ratio, all the way up to a 6-to-1 ratio, meaning 4-to-1 ratio, 4 omega-6s to every 1 omega-3. Now, omega-3s are typically considered anti-inflammatory. Omega-6s are typically pro-inflammatory. But as long as you're in the 1-to-1 ratio to 4-to-1 ratio, you're going to be just fine. The problem comes down to the typical American diet. They call it the standard American diet, or the SAD diet, or SAD diet. And it's sad because that standard American diet, if you eat what they tell you to eat, your omega-3 to omega-6 ratios are going to be between 20-to-1 all the way up to 50-to-1. If you have 56s for every 1 omega-3, you're going to be in a very pro-inflammatory state, which can lead to plaquing in your brain, inflammation in your arteries, heart disease, inflammation in your cells, cancer. So inflammation is a big, big problem here. And that's because we eat too many omega-6 fatty acids, too many fried foods, trans fats. That's another one. Trans fat consumption. Trans fat is linked to a higher risk of memory impairment. We all know how bad trans fat is for your arteries and causes heart disease. And all we need to do is start taking that out, not just for heart disease, but it's going to help our brain function better. It actually acts as a pro-oxidant, meaning it makes oxidation happen. And we do not want oxidation in our brain because that causes oxidative stress, which leads to cellular damage. And when you have cellular damage, it can lead to things, again, like the beta amyloid plaquing, as well as the cellular damage, which can lead to inflammation and cancer and heart disease. So again, it's all about changing what we're eating here. It seems to be a theme. If we eat more omega-3s, less omega-6s, we're going to be in better shape. And the last thing here I wanted to talk about was toxic buildup. And where do we find toxins? Well, they're basically everywhere. But there's a couple that are really, really important for us to understand, and those are the heavy metals. You're going to find heavy metals in aluminum. And where do we find aluminum? Well, you're exposed to aluminum if you're using aluminum pans to cook with. There's going to be trace amounts of aluminum getting into your food. So we should never use aluminum pans. We should be using stainless steel or copper, or even better, cast iron. We also get aluminum in our deodorants. So if you use an antiperspirant, they use aluminum in that antiperspirant to keep you from sweating. Now, if your body's trying to sweat, you should let it sweat. So we're going to talk about here in a little bit are some better versions of those with deodorants that don't have aluminum that actually still works. I know you probably are saying, I've tried the natural stuff and it doesn't work at all. I've tried them all. I know some of them really work and some of them don't work at all. So I'll give you some things to look for. Phthalates and fragrances, these chemicals can actually disrupt our brain. We can also look at things like NutraSweet and those types of sweeteners. They disrupt our brain as well. And then heavy metals in vaccinations. And most people don't understand that there's heavy metals in all vaccinations. Mercury, you've probably heard of. And mercury is in there as a preservative, and mercury has been linked to autism and a whole bunch of other things. So we try not to get the vaccinations for that purpose, but they also put aluminum in vaccinations. And the reason why they put aluminum in vaccinations is that when they use a vaccination, they put a weakened or a dead virus into there so your body can have an immune response and create the antibodies for it. But they realized that it wasn't creating enough of an immune response. But they know aluminum really gets the immune system fired up. So if we put just a little bit of aluminum, that heavy metal, into that vaccination, it'll fire up your immune system and have a response against that virus and create those antibodies. That's how that works. Neat and all, but I don't want aluminum in my body. I don't want aluminum in my children's body because I know what it can do to the brain. And there's also mercury and amalgam fillings. So these are some things that we need to avoid. But what we're going to do tonight now, what we're going to start looking at this is, how can we make changes to our lifestyle? What can we do differently? So we teach in my office what are called the 5 essentials of max living care. It's basically a way of looking for how should we be eating? How should we be exercising? It all goes back to how did God create our body? What does our body need to function? And how can we give our body more of what it needs and less of what it doesn't? And I'm going to tell you right now, if you live congruently with how God created the human body, you're going to be happier. You're going to be healthier, and you're going to be able to fulfill your purpose on this earth. And that is the most important thing to me. I never want my health to get in my way of my purpose. And I know a lot of people out there who have let their health deteriorate to the point where their dreams of doing this, or this are no longer being realized because of their health. And that's not what God intended for these people. That's not how it's supposed to be. If we just took care of our health on a preventative and proactive venue, let's just do it all the time, consistently, take good care of our body, it will take good care of you. So what do these 5 essentials look like? We talk about core chiropractic. I am a chiropractor. We need to talk about that here this evening. We're going to talk about eating better food. I don't teach diets. I teach people how to read labels, understand ingredients, understand the quality of the ingredients and how much that plays a part in whether you're going to create health or disease when you eat that food. Mindset, understanding that health comes from inside of you. Your normal state is a state of health. Once you understand that you are supposed to be healthy at all times, then you can, when you start to lose your health, you can start to look at these 5 essentials and say, what is it that what am I not doing? Where am I lacking? What am I doing not enough of? And start to do that, and guess what happens? Health becomes restored again. If you just did all 5 of these things on a daily basis, you typically will never have any issues. Oxygen and exercise, that looks a lot like fitness, right? But we have a different goal. It's not to look good. It's not to feel good. It's not to lose weight. It's to get oxygen to our cells so we can prevent cancer and keep our body healthy. It's also to burn fat and create lean muscle. And when you do these things, one of the side effects is you're probably going to lose a little bit of weight. You're probably going to look a little bit better. You're going to have a little bit more muscle. You're going to be able to do more and be able to do your activities of daily living without having something holding you back. And we do need to minimize our exposure to toxins. We talked about that a minute ago. And we say minimize because we can't expect to avoid toxins for the rest of our life. We can only minimize these toxins. So let's start with mindset. How do we manage the stress that's shrinking our brain and causing cognitive decline? So Zig Ziglar, he's a motivational speaker, one of my favorites, and he said, what we concern our minds with or worry about never comes about, causing unnecessary stress and sickness. And it's 100% true. So in his study that he did, he said that these are the things that people worry about. They worry about 40% of what they worry about are things that are never going to happen. 30% of what people worry about are things that already happened. 12% of what people worry about are needless worries about their health. 10% of what people worry about are petty miscellaneous worries. 8% of what people worry about are real, legitimate worries. So in short, 92% of the average person's worries take up valuable time, cause painful stress, mental anguish, which for the most part are absolutely unnecessary. When you start thinking about that, the things we worry about, they usually don't come about. But I will tell you, if you focus on these things, they might, and you don't want these things to come about. So we need to start thinking more positive. So can we prevent stress? No, because stress is just a part of daily life, but we can manage it better. And what are the things that I do to manage my stress? I love getting a good night's rest, although sometimes my children make sure that doesn't happen. And if you're a parent out there, you know what I'm talking about. I will tell you a little trick that my wife and I have done. It does work pretty well most of the time. We don't mind when our children come in our room if they have a bad dream, but I do mind because I like to sleep and I get quite upset if somebody wakes me up. What we've done for our kids that want to come in our room, we put their sleeping bags on our floor. So if they have a bad dream, they can come on in quietly and they can get right into their sleeping bag. They can be next to mama and papa bear, they can be snugly and in our room and feel safe. But guess what they didn't do? They did not interrupt my sleep, which is more important. I like to listen to my favorite music. If I'm having a bad day or I'm having a bad moment, you can change your state of mind just by putting on your favorite song. Put your windows down, belt it out. Nobody wants to hear me sing because I can't, but I'm telling you, it doesn't matter because it can change your physiology in an instant. Putting on a song that gets you fired up and gets you excited, you'll forget what you were upset about 2 minutes ago. That's a great thing to do. Exercising and eating healthy on a general basis, that's a good thing to do. Prioritizing your time. What are you spending your time doing? Are you actually prioritizing it with important things? Talk to your friends about your problems. Don't hold it in. And if my wife's watching, she knows, and I know, I hold my problems in. I don't like to bother other people with my problems, so I just hold it in. And sometimes it gets too much, and my wife knows exactly what that looks like. And thank God for her, because she's a fantastic communicator. She'll sit me down and say, "What's wrong?" And I'll say nothing. And then she'll say, "What's wrong?" And I'll say nothing. And then she'll say it again. And then finally I'll spit it out. And I say nothing because it's so stupid what I'm probably upset about. But once I get it off my chest, I always feel better. And I'm always upset that I left it in there for that long because it's so dumb. But getting it off your chest always feels better. So whether you talk to your spouse about that, you talk to your parents about that, you talk to your chiropractor, your doctor, your CAs, we're here to help you guys. You know we are. Or you just talk to a stranger. Sometimes people tell me things. I don't know who the heck they are, but you know what? I probably made their day better because I listened to them. Power naps, I'm not a fan. That's not my thing, but I know a lot of people do a good job of that. Find a hobby. I have tons of hobbies. I told you I like to learn. And when I dig into something, I like to learn as much as possible, whether it's playing the guitar or, or painting or brewing or barbecuing, whatever it is. I want to know as much as possible about these things because I find it so interesting to learn. And that's very stimulating for the brain. Another thing that we like to do to manage our stress is laugh. People do not laugh enough. My wife and I's favorite date night is going to a comedian. I've told you about comedians that we've watched on YouTube. Guys, they have them on Netflix. They have them everywhere. Go see these guys live. These guys are awesome. They're all funny. That's what, that's their job, is to make you laugh. And I'll tell you, the study that I read showed that if you laugh, laughter will boost your immune system for 24 hours. So I know the world is not happy right now. There's not a lot of laughter out there. Shut the news off. Shut off social media. Turn on YouTube and look up a comedian and just laugh. Okay? So those are the things that I like to do. Another thing we could do is just, how about healthy, positive affirmations? These are things that you don't have to say them out loud. Some people like to say these things out loud, but say these things to yourself. Tough times don't last, but tough people do. I focus on what I want, not what I don't want. And that's a big one. I've done a lot of research about, the universe and how it works, and, how the universe does not acknowledge the word no. And I have a great example. When you're in 5th grade and your teacher asks a question and you don't know the answer, what do you do? What do you say in your head? Right? Don't call on me. Don't call on me. Don't. And every time you do that, what does the teacher do? Mr. Moss, would you like to answer? No, because I don't know the answer. Because I was saying, don't call on me. What is the universe here? Call on me. Just like if you're playing baseball, don't strike out. Don't strike out. What are we focusing on? We're focusing on the negative. What I should think of is hit the ball, or, call on him. So focusing on what you do want is very important instead of focusing on what you don't want. Early bird gets the worm. All storms will pass. This has been a big one lately. Just knowing that, as crappy as somebody's life could be right now, whether they've lost their job, they've lost their health, lost a family member, all storms do pass. They don't last forever. And we need to focus on that. And another one, we got to say, I love my life. I love my life. I love my wife. I love all the things that I get to do. Being around people that are positive. That is such a fantastic thing. Do not hang out with negative Nancy. If you hang out with negative people, they are going to drag you down. I have a group of friends that I like to hang out with, and they are all such positive people. They make me laugh. They're fun. They're like-minded, and they can bring me up if I'm down. So surround yourself with positive people. And I'll tell you, one of my goals in my office is I want every single person leaving here. Yes, I want them adjusted. Yeah, I want pressure off the nervous system, but I want them to leave with a smile. And some people are easy to make smile, some people are tougher to make smile. But if you leave here and you smiled, I know I did my job because I put a little bit of positivity into your life that I think we all need. Live with gratitude. Do you wake up every morning and start to think about all the things that you're grateful for? You're alive. Some people aren't. Are you married? Do you have wonderful, healthy kids? You have a roof over your head. You have a job. You have a car. These are all things that we should be grateful for, because what I've learned in my life is that God is never going to give you anything unless you're grateful for what you already have. You're not going to make it to that next step if you're not grateful for where you are now. You need to be happy and grateful for what you have now before you can take that next step. And that third one there is something that I need to work on more, is laughing at ourselves. I know Whitney probably is laughing at me right now because I do take myself maybe a little bit too seriously sometimes. My staff probably likes to have a little bit more fun with things than I do. I say no to a lot of things, like wearing onesie Wednesday. They wanted us to wear onesies. I was like, I'm not doing that. And nobody wants to see me in a onesie. I'm not going to do that anyway, but I've been working on it. I've been working on just laughing at myself and just not taking life so darn seriously. And that's a good thing. So here are some other things that we can do to just sharpen the mind, keep the memory sharp, is brain teasers. How often are you doing a brain teaser, a crossword puzzle, Sudoku? These are some things that we need to be doing to keep our mind sharp. My grandmother was 98 years old when she passed away 2 years ago. And at 98, sharp as a tack. And her secret was she was a reader. In the home that she lived in, she was known as the reader. And what I mean is she would read a novel that thick every single day. I'd buy her a book, and then the next day it's done. I'm like, I don't know why I bought you the book. We need to get you like a Kindle. That's too expensive. I can't afford to keep buying you all these books. Because she was a speed reader, and she'd read all these books. She kept her mind acute by using it. If you just sit around and watch mindless television, you're losing it. You need to stimulate your brain. So a study came out not too long ago that actually showed spinal degeneration in your neck was actually, and lack of motion in your neck, caused cognitive decline. And that's what I want to take you to my next point here, is max nerve supply. So we understand that the brain is where God put the power that created us. And that message comes out of our brain, runs down our spinal cord, out along nerves to every single cell, every single organ, every single tissue, gland, muscle, bone in our entire body. And as long as there's no interference, nothing blocking the power from the brain getting to the body's going to function exactly the way it was designed to function. And if you're healing and functioning the way you're supposed to, you're going to be in that normal state of ease, that normal state of healing. And that should be all of our goals. We need to ensure that communication between our brain and every other cell. And that study was showing that if you have misalignments in your neck, over time they degenerate and they lose the motion in those joints. And those joints do not move. It can actually affect your brain and lead to cognitive decline. So what are these misalignments? What do they look like? What are they called? They are called subluxations. Subluxation is a misalignment of a bone in your spine that puts severe pressure on a spinal nerve that goes to muscles and tendons, but also go to vital organs. And I like to use an analogy of a big green field. So let's say you own 100 acres of green field. And for you to see all of your 100 acres, you need to go up with this big tower, and you go out and you look and you see all this green field, and you have all your hoses hooked up so that all your irrigation's going and everything's nice and green. The next week you come out and you see this patch that happens to be turning a little bit brown. And then you're like, well, maybe it's fine. And then you go again next week and you look at it's turning browner, and you look, everything else is green, but that one patch is turning brown. There's something wrong there, right? What do? You go throw herbicides, pesticides, fertilizer, whatever you get. What are you going to throw a bunch of chemicals on there to make it better? No, what you're going to do is look at its lifeline. What's different about that one brown patch and all the other green patches? Well, you're going to go check the hoses, right? It's obviously not, it's dried up, it's not getting the irrigation it needs. So you find a hole in the hose. So what do? You unkink that hose, you put some tape over it, get the pressure back in the hose, let the water go back, take the water to that brown patch of grass and your field. And what's going to eventually happen? It's going to start turning green again. The same exact thing happens in our body. If there's pressure on nerves going to specific organs, those organs are not going to function at 100%, and you're not going to know it. You're not going to know it until it's been not wilting a little bit, it started to turn really brown and start to deteriorate. Now you're going to start to feel it, and you're going to think you have a medical problem. You're going to go to your medical doctor, and they're going to give you medication to make you feel better and cover up those symptoms, when that is not actually the problem. The problem is not the brown grass. It's not the fact that the grass is brown. The problem is the fact that it's not getting the water it needed to live. So as a chiropractor, my job is to check your spinal alignment on a regular basis and make sure that you do not have these misalignments, these subluxations, putting pressure on these nerves, causing your grass to turn brown, your body to deteriorate, lose your health. If we can just get the pressure off those nerves and reconnect that part of your body back to your brain, you're going to be able to heal again. And your body can heal from everything. It can heal from anything. It's designed to do that. But it just needs time, and it needs no interference. So what are some signs that you have what's called a bad brain-body connection? Well, in children, you can have ADD, ADHD, colic, digestive issues. I see a lot of babies with colic and constipation. That will lead to dysbiosis in the gut, which can also lead to skin issues like eczema, ear infections. I see that tons in my clinic right now. Kids are having ear infections, and they're going to get antibiotics, which causes more gut dysbiosis, which causes more problems with the skin. It's like, well, why are we getting an ear infection? If you're not looking for the cause of the infection, you're never going to get better. And a lot of times it's a subluxation at the top of the neck, causing improper drainage of the ear, causing it to back up and causing it to get infected. I adjust the little baby, and it starts to drain, and guess what happens? Ear infections go away. In teenagers, again, ADD, ADHD, we see a lot of depression, self-esteem issues, hormonal issues, and skin problems, skin rashes, severe acne. We start taking pressure off of their nervous system. And you know what? My favorite thing is seeing these teenagers who, are grumpy or upset or depressed or have self-esteem issues start to smile again. That's a wonderful, wonderful day in our office. And as adults, we see headaches, neck pain, back pain. We see numbing and tingling in the hands. We see those are the common things that people think to go to a chiropractor to. But if you've been subluxated for a while, it can lead to things like brain fog. It can lead to things like attention issues, focus problems, sleep issues. Again, constipation, depression, allergies, and asthma. All these things can lead back to the fact that your body is not communicating with your brain and vice versa. So this is just a little case study we did. This is a gentleman that came into our office, and this is his x-ray, and there's supposed to be a curve in his neck, and the curve's actually going the wrong direction. And if you look down towards the bottom, you can see, and let me see if I can get my thing to go on there. So hopefully you can see that now. Good. So right down here at the bottom, you can see bony growth here. That's arthritis. The curve is going the wrong direction, and this is not a good thing. What that's been doing is causing radiating pain down into his hands, neck pain. He couldn't even move his hands. They were like paralyzed. He couldn't turn his head. He could barely walk from all the pain, but look at that last thing. He could not think straight, and he had a problem with his memory. What did we do for him? I didn't give him any medications. I didn't do physical therapy. We didn't stretch him. What I did was start to correct his spine, start taking pressure off of his nervous system, start to restore the curve, take pressure off. And as his pressure came off of his spinal cord, his life became restored, going back to his body. And what was really cool is as it went back to the body, it also went back to the brain. And that was his first thing he said was, I can think clearer. I can sleep better. I'm walking again. I can use a pen. Look at this. And it didn't take that long. It's just amazing to me to think, what would have happened to him had he gone to the hospital instead of coming to a chiropractor? I don't even want to think of what that would have cost, let alone the ill effects of all the testing and the costs and just the poor results. I always tell my patients, if you just think of us as your primary care doctors, which we are, Our job is just to help your body do what it's been trying to do. If you need extra help, that's fine. But you know what? Most of the problems can be healed from the inside out. Now, if you're a patient of mine, the number one thing I tell my patients is consistency is key. If you're correcting your care, do not miss your visits. If you've made it to maintenance care, don't miss your weekly checkups or your once every 2 week checkups, because getting an adjustment or checking for subluxation on a regular basis before you have a problem is how you don't get a problem. If you constantly go to a chiropractor because you have a back problem, you're never going to get better. You need to correct the problem, and then you need to maintain it. And that's something we should be taking care of our nervous system from now on. This is why I'm a pediatric chiropractor, because we know that if we can start taking care of the nervous system from the day you're born, you're going to be a lot healthier and happier and live a lot longer, less medications. And again, my purpose of that is to help people reach their purpose and not let their health get in their way. So if you're right now, somebody has never been to a chiropractor, you're not a patient of ours, you're not a patient anywhere, and you're like, this sounds awesome. I at least want to find out, do I have a subluxation? Maybe that's been causing all my problems. How would you know? The only way you'd know is by going and getting an evaluation. Now, if you live anywhere near my office, which is in Canton, Georgia, we'd love to have you come to our office. In fact, Whitney's going to put a banner up here in a minute with our phone number, and all you have to do is you can text or call us, and we'll set you up for an appointment. And next week, we're actually doing what's called our Friends and Family Week, where we're offering half off of our exam and x-rays. So what we do at that first new patient exam is we sit you down and find out, what are your health goals? We go through your history. Are you taking medications? Have you been in any accidents? What is going on with your body? How did you get to this point? Then we do an examination. We look at your posture. We look at your range of motion. We check your spine. We do orthopedic and neurological testing. We run a computerized nerve scan to see how is your nervous system functioning. And if anything there shows a red flag, we're going to take x-rays. Sometimes we take 2, sometimes we take 4 to find out where is the problem. We then take an evening to sit down and measure these x-rays down to the millimeter, down to the degree, to find out where is your problem coming from. And then we bring you back in the next day to report back to you to let you know exactly what we found and if we are going to be able to help you. If you want to come in, we'd be glad to do that. Now, if you live nowhere near my office and you still want to get a checkup, I suggest you go to www.maxliving.com. There is a provider locator there. So I'm part of a network of over 400 doctors across the United States, Canada, and Puerto Rico. We are on the same mission. We practice the same way. We are all on the same mission to help change healthcare for the better and help people realize their health goals from within. If you live somewhere else in the United States, go there and you can find a doctor that's close to you. Let them know that you saw this and say, I would like to get a checkup, and they'll be glad to do that for you. So let's get into some strategies for reducing Alzheimer, dementia, brain fog, okay? These are 2 of the big food things that we need to try to minimize, even eliminate. One of them is called gluten, and that's the protein found in wheat. And the other one is called casein, and that is the protein found in milk. So primarily wheat and pasteurized dairy are the problems. Somebody's going to ask me about raw milk, grass-fed milk. Listen, there's still casein in that, but when it's raw, it's not as bad for you. I try to stay away from dairy. I know my body reacts to dairy. It reacts to gluten. And actually, my wife could tell you, my kids could probably tell you that they know when I eat gluten because it disrupts my brain. I become more irritable, and I don't like that feeling. I don't like walking around upset for no reason. So I try to stay away from gluten. I try to stay away from dairy. If you're going to do dairy, at least make sure it's grass-fed. If you're going to do wheat, at least make sure it's organic. But research is showing that gluten actually adversely affects your blood-brain barrier and makes your gut more permeable, which means that food particles, you've heard of leaky gut. Leaky gut can happen because of these gluten proteins. They make the gut more permeable, promotes inflammation and autoimmunity, and both of those things will play a role in the development of Alzheimer's. So getting rid of wheat, getting rid of dairy, or at least minimizing it is a very important strategy. I also want you to start adding in some foods, not just get rid of things. Let's add some foods with magnesium, because magnesium regulates a receptor in the brain that plays an important role in memory and learning. In addition, low levels of magnesium, so the deficiency in magnesium has actually been linked to increased inflammation, which could increase the risk of dementia, let alone all other diseases that are related to inflammation like cancer, heart disease, and type 2 diabetes. So foods with magnesium, dark leafy greens, such as your raw spinach, Swiss chard, kale, collard greens, turnip greens. I suggest not eating just one of these. I'd like to rotate my greens, whether you eat them in a salad or you throw them in a smoothie. Constantly try to change those up. Nuts and seeds like your almonds, pine nuts, pecans, walnuts, and cashews. Beans, lentils, avocados are always fantastic. And if you're going to do grains at all, just make sure they're whole grains. You don't want the white rice, the white bread. Whole grain would be better, but I just try to take as much grain out as I can. We also want to add in foods with folate. Folate, also known as folic acid, folate's the whole food version of that, but folate deficiencies, that's a B9 deficiency, can lead to an increased risk of depression, poor antidepressant treatment outcomes, which is interesting, as well as an increased risk of cognitive impairment and dementia. So if you're deficient in vitamin B, you're probably gonna be tired a lot too. Well, you could supplement. We have an awesome methylated B vitamin, but you can also just eat foods with more folate and B vitamins like spinach, artichokes, asparagus, and avocados, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, everybody's favorite, papaya, lentils, pinto beans, black beans, and kidney beans. We're also going to add foods with zinc because zinc is the most abundant trace metal in the brain, and it has numerous functions, but in health, in both health and disease. But recent studies are showing that zinc supplementation can actually potentially benefit individuals with Alzheimer's disease now. So if we're taking it before that happens, we can hopefully prevent some of these things from happening. So where do you find zinc? Kefir or yogurt. Again, if you're going to do these things, those are fermented milks. Grass-fed, organic is what you need to be looking at. Chickpeas, so making your own hummus. We have a great hummus recipe in our Align Your Health book. Pumpkin seeds and flax seeds, cashews, cocoa powder, chicken, lamb, mushrooms, spinach, kidney beans. Man, I look at that. I could probably make a really good dish out of all those things on there. So those are things we want to add. What do we want to take out now? How about sugar? We talked about sugar causing inflammation. Too much sugar causes dysbiosis in the gut. But the fact is, most people have no idea how much sugar they're actually consuming because a lot of it is hidden in processed foods. You just don't know. I asked a patient how much sugar you're consuming. I don't even know. They have no idea. But they're telling me that they're drinking their 8 ounces of orange juice every morning. I'm like, there's more sugar in orange juice than there is in a Coca-Cola. So what you need to start thinking about is, fruit has sugar. Carbohydrates are sugar. Look at carbohydrates and the sugars and how much fiber there is. You want there to be fiber with your sugar. And when you have juice, there's no fiber in it. Now you're just getting 100% fructose. That's an easy way to get diabetes. But if you were to eat an orange, you have to understand God put fructose with fiber for a reason. It slows the process down of digestion, which leads to a smaller insulin spike, which does not cause diabetes. It does not wreak havoc on your body. But the fact is, sugar tastes good. I get it. They've actually shown that sugar is more addictive than cocaine. And it's linked to not just rising obesity rates, but also the rise of diseases like cancer and heart disease and Alzheimer's. So we need to start removing sugar from our diet. So you want to look at the carbohydrates, removing rices and grains, too much of this stuff. You can't have pasta every single day. That's not good. You can't have a sandwich every single day, drinking orange juice every single day. These are bad things. Minimizing. I didn't tell you to eliminate this stuff. Minimize how often you're eating these high sugar foods. But what's worse than sugar for our brain is aspartame. These NutraSweet, all these chemicals that trick your body into thinking that it's sweet. Aspartame is not a diet product. One study that I read states that when patients go off aspartame, their average weight loss was 19 pounds per person. So when they stopped drinking Diet Coke, they actually lost weight. And another study of 80,000 women by the American Cancer Society found that those who used this neurotoxic diet sweetener actually gained more weight than those who didn't use aspartame products. So I just try to get aspartame and aspartic acid and all these other, Splenda and NutraSweet and I forget the other one is Sweet and Low, NutraSweet, all these other, it's all junk. We do not want to use that. So what do we want to use to sweeten our foods and not cause diabetes? We can use things like monk fruit extract. We can use stevia. We can use xylitol and erythritol. These are all sweeteners that do not raise our blood sugar levels. So if you were going to change your diet and do what we call our advanced plan with Max Living and get rid of all these carbohydrates, you can still have your sweets. We make awesome black bean brownies, and they're made with black beans. You're not going to taste them. It tastes like a brownie, and we sweeten it with xylitol. So it tastes sweet, it tastes fantastic, and it's actually good for you. And it doesn't cause problems with inflammation because there's nothing inflammatory in it. But the one dietary thing that we are missing is fat. Fat is actually the #1 missing ingredient in our diet. It builds membranes. It helps us absorb vitamins. It cushions our vital organs. It protects you from extreme temperatures. It regulates and makes up the building blocks of hormones. It lowers inflammation. But we need to consume healthy fat and not bad fat. So what's the difference? And I talk about this all the time. I'm going to put it up here again. Bad fats are your hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oils. So cottonseed oil, soybean oil, vegetable oil. These are all awful oils for us. Canola oil is not even real. Canola is not a real plant. Trans fats, so your margarines, your, country crock margarine, Smart Balance, this is all junk. You should, if you want butter, get butter. Get Kerrygold grass-fed butter. That's the stuff that you want to use. So what are some good fats? What do we need? If we need fat, what are the fats that we should be consuming? Extra virgin olive oil. It's fantastic for us, but make sure that you're not cooking it on medium or high heat because you oxidize it and make it just as bad as the bad fat. So I use it for low heat cooking, no heat cooking, so salad dressings. If I am going to cook with oils, I'm going to use coconut oil or avocado oil. I suggest going to Costco to get those because it's way cheaper there than anywhere else. I eat lots of avocados and avocado oil, coconut and coconut oil, raw nuts, almonds and cashews and pecans. We eat a lot of that. We smother our vegetables in butter, grass-fed butter. If we're going to do cheese, it needs to be grass-fed cheese. If you're going to do meats, the fat in meats can be good for you if it's from healthy meat. So healthy beef is from grass-fed cows. Healthy chicken is organic chicken. Healthy fish are not farm raised, they're wild caught fish. So you want to find the stuff that's wild caught. So those are some of the things that we need to do. But we also talked about earlier the omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acid ratio. And one of the things that I like to do is I like to supplement, because if you really want to get enough omega-3s in your body to reduce inflammation in your brain, let alone every other part of your body, I want to get more omega-3s in. And you can do it through your diet, which means you're going to be eating, cold water fish, typically your salmon, your mackerel, sardines, and anchovies at least 3 times a week. Those are some of my least favorite fish. Salmon I can handle, but the other ones I'm not going to really eat. So instead of eating it, I'm going to supplement with it. So what I typically would recommend is either the optimal omega or what's called our max omega-3. And the max omega-3 is actually where I would have most people start. Because it's only omega-3, it's only anti-inflammatory. But if you're already eating well, then you can go with what I have on the screen, which is your optimal omega, which is a good balance between omega-3 and omega-6. All these omegas are important for proper brain function. It can help fight depression. It can help with attention, lower blood pressure, lowers cholesterol, prevents cancer, anti-inflammatory. These are all things that we should all be taking. So I have a couple of things that I tell all my patients to take because I know that we're not getting it from our diet, and omega-3s are one of them. Number 2, well, this is actually, we talked about in the very beginning, is that when should we start taking care of our brain and preventing Alzheimer's and dementia? How about when we're born? Why are we waiting until we're older? So I make sure that all my kids are getting omega-3s and vitamin D. And we have one that's all combined. It tastes like raspberry lemonade. It's got your omega-3s, your EPA and DHA, and it also has doses of vitamin D3. So make sure your kids are on this stuff too. Now, why is D3 important? Low levels of vitamin D actually increase the risk of cognitive decline. I had a video and it didn't work. I was going to show you, I think it was a Dateline thing about vitamin D and how it showed that it can help reduce chances of Alzheimer's. But it not only does it help with brain, but it supports with bone development and maintenance. But even more important, it activates your immune system. If your vitamin D levels are low, your immune system will not function properly. So if right now, especially if we want to be healthy, we need to get our immune system jacked up and really at like tip-top shape. If you're not outside with your shirt off 30 minutes every single day, because that's how you get free vitamin D, which most of us are not doing, you need a supplement with it. And I recommend 5,000 international units every single day. And ours has 10 billion CFUs of probiotics in each capsule because that, one, will help the absorption of the vitamin D, but two, it actually helps with gut. We're going to help reduce some of that dysbiosis, make a happy gut. So that's something else we can do. And then specifically for inflammation, I was talking to a patient this morning about this because she was asking me about heart inflammation and how do we reduce inflammation in the arteries. Well, it's the same thing I'm going to recommend for inflammation in the brain. Our daily defense. It's a natural anti-inflammatory. There are three things, actually, I think there's four in there now. We just reformulated. One is curcumin. Curcumin is a natural anti-inflammatory. That's going to help reduce inflammation in the brain. Indian gooseberry is a powerful antioxidant, cardiovascular support, it's high in vitamin C. We also have a patented form of superoxide dismutase, which is very strong antioxidant. It helps combat cellular damage, and we combine that with NAC, which is just another antioxidant. So we're trying to reduce any damage that we've been dealing with for many, many years. And it's a trio, but it's actually four things now. These are antioxidants that they work synergistically to help fight inflammation. So by taking this every day, that's why it's called daily defense. We're basically defending our body against oxidation, oxidative stress that causes cancer, inflammation, heart disease, dementia, type 2 diabetes. It's all in this one capsule. So this is a very, very powerful capsule. I want to give you also a brain boosting smoothie recipe. This is something you can write down. I'll give you a minute to get a pen. But it's very, very simple. Now, this is something that tastes fantastic. It looks really cool. It looks like a shamrock shake, which I would like to say I've never had, but I had years and years ago. This is a one-person serving, so double if you're going to make it for two. It's a half an avocado, a quarter of a banana, a half a cup of blueberries, 6 walnuts, 1 scoop of our grass-fed whey protein in the vanilla flavor, and then a half a cup of water. And then if you were going to use the half a cup of blueberries, I typically get mine at Costco. I like my organic frozen blueberries. If you use the frozen blueberries, you do not need the ice cubes. If you fresh blueberries, put the ice cubes in there so you get that consistency. And we do use whey protein. There's no casein in our protein. There's no sugar in our protein. It's never been denatured. And it is 100% from grass-fed, grass-finished cows, which means it's anti-inflammatory, which means the ratio of omega-3s and omega-6s is proper, not going to cause any problems. Maximize lean muscle. This is where we're going to talk about exercise. Physical exercise actually increases endorphins and delivers glucose, which is needed, and oxygen to our brain. So by exercising on a regular basis, we get more oxygen to our brain, and we will think clearer. Research has actually showed that physical exercise may be the single most important thing that you can do for your brain. And you don't need to do all this strenuous exercise, but you need to get out and walk at least once a day. Get out and do these things. But I like to do as little as possible in the shortest amount of time that's the most efficient and effective when it comes to working out. So what do I like to do? I like to do what's called the Max T3 workout. The Max T3 workout is metabolic conditioning. It's a very specific way of working out that's high intensity but short in duration, which means that I work out for 12 minutes 3 times a week. And after one 12-minute workout, my cortisol levels, my stress hormones will go down for 36 hours. So that means I'm going to have less stress in my life. I'm going to be less irritable. I'm going to sleep better. And then my anabolic hormones, the ones that actually build muscle and burn fat, that's my testosterone and human growth hormone, are going to go up for 36 hours after one 12-minute workout. I don't need an hour in the gym. I don't need the insanity P90X. I don't need to kill myself to get healthy. I'm going to do it for 12 minutes. And the good news is when you do this consistently 3 times a week, you can do it 6 times a week. You are going to feel so good. You sleep better. You feel better. You look better. You burn fat. You build muscle. You're able to do all these things. You're getting fit in 12 minutes a day. If you're a patient of mine, you should already have access to the Max T3 program. It's at maxt3.com. When you started as a patient here, you got this book right here. And this book is the Align Your Health book. And it had a bookmark in it. And that bookmark had a code. And that is your key to your creating your account. If you're not a patient here, you can still have access to it. It's maxt3.com. Just set up an account. I believe it's $19.99 for unlimited access. And there's all the workouts that you need right there on that website. And you can watch them on your TV. You can watch them on your phone, your iPad, your laptop, watch them anywhere and do these workouts with yourself. And you don't need a gym. You need light weights. You need maybe some bands, maybe a pull-up bar if you really are getting big and going big here, and a ball, a yoga ball. You have those 4 pieces of equipment. You're going to be able to do everything that I just talked about. One other thing, I want to go back to this one here. Sitting versus a standing desk. We sit all day at our desks. If you're at a desk or you're traveling and you're in a car, sitting is what they call the new smoking. It's that bad for us. We are exhausted after a day of sitting because our brain is recharged by spinal movement. How do we fix this? 1, get a standing desk. If you get a standing desk and have a little pad to stand on, you're going to have more energy at the end of the day. It's better for your spine. It's better for your nervous system. It's better for your psyche and your health. If you don't have a standing desk, get a wobble cushion. My patients, every one of you should have a wobble cushion. Sit on your wobble cushion at work. Now, you don't have to sit there and do your wobbles. You can, but just that little bit of movement, that little bit of spinal movement, that little bit of not being steady is actually going to continuously fire neurons. It's going to keep your brain alert and focused, and you're going to leave that day feeling more energized than if you just sat stagnant. Okay, so that's just a quick little tip for you. The last topic we're going to talk about is monitoring environmental toxins, and this is a hard one to talk about because it's I have workshops just on this, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on there. I'm going to just a couple that are really have to do with the brain. Fluoride, where do we find fluoride? Well, we go to the dentist, they put fluoride on our teeth, and what do they tell you not to do? They tell you not to swallow it because they know it's bad for us. Yet, for some reason, we have fluoride in our tap water. So I do not drink tap water because tap water and fluoride in the tap water has actually been shown to lower people's IQ. We don't need more of that. We need less of that. So I don't drink tap water. I suggest you don't drink tap water. I would get either bottled water that's already been purified or get a whole house water filter system. Reverse osmosis is what I would recommend. That's what I have in my office. I have that at my home. It's the only thing that's going to take the fluoride out. Brita is not going to do that. So we got to get the fluoride out. Artificial sweeteners, preservatives. These are things like I had a patient whose mom has the beginning stages of Alzheimer's and dementia. And even their medical doctors said the first thing that they needed to do was get rid of all preservatives because they are recognizing that those chemicals are detrimental to cognitive function. So we need to get that stuff out of our diet. And you're only going to know what it is by knowing how to read an ingredient label, not a nutrition label. So if you come to one of our classes about nutrition, our Nutrition 101 workshop that we have on our YouTube channel, if you go to that, you can actually read and learn how to read these labels. High fructose corn syrup has been shown to cause brain shrinkage. GMOs causing brain rancidity. I mean, this is just, it goes on and on. It's ridiculous. One of the things that most people don't think about is electromagnetic radiation that's emitted by your cell phone. This radiation emitted by your cell phone, we put it up to our ear, and I have mine here. So I put it up to my ear. That can disrupt the DNA in your brain cells right here and cause brain dysfunction. So my wife never puts her phone up to her ear. She always talks on speakerphone. Get that away from your ear. But sometimes we can't do that. So, and, Bluetooth is probably not any better. So what I've done is I put on, it might be a little bit hard to see on the back of my phone here. Let me get that. There we go. This guy right here. It's called an R2L. I've done a lot of research on what you could put on your phone to mitigate the radiation that's going to happen whether you like it or not. And a lot of the things out there don't work. And some of them say that they work, and what they do is they spread out the radiation instead, so it's not concentrated right in your ear, it's going all over your head, which I don't find to be any better. This one made the most sense to me. This is called an R2L, or a radiation to light. They use physics and how energy works. You cannot destroy or create energy. So what they do is just convert energy. They take that radiation coming into your cell phone antenna and they convert it to light. So what actually happens is a little red dot will start to light up here. If I was on, not my Wi-Fi, if I was on my 4G or LTE and watching a YouTube channel or checking my email, this red would start to light up. And it starts to beep, 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 beep. And you don't hear, but it just makes it all these lights. What it's doing is taking the radiation that would have gone into your head and creating light with it. It's pretty amazing. So what it actually shows, it reduces the radiation going into your head by 70%. So I'm all for it. I have them here in my office. The good news is that they're only $30. And when the average American is on their phone 162 minutes a day with that radiation going into their head, I think it's a very, very good and wise investment. I believe you can get them online. I know I have them here in the office. And if you do get them in our office, I'll help you guys install them because they can be a little tricky. A couple other things we do need to talk about. Mercury. We talked about mercury and eliminating mercury from our body. And we talked about mercury in vaccinations. But what about mercury in your fillings? Amalgam fillings are 50% mercury by weight. And they're one of the major sources of heavy metal toxicity. And the thing is, if you have them in there, you see them. I know dentists don't use them anymore. They use, porcelain or composite. If you have them in there, every time you put hot water in there or hot food, it's emitting mercury. It's ridiculous. I don't know why we ever use these. I'm not a dentist. I don't understand it, but I do know that we'd be better off not having them in our body anymore. If you want to get those out, you need to find a biological dentist. They're hard to find. I had a patient last night tell me that it wasn't as expensive as he thought it was going to be to get it removed, but they're in hazmat suits and everything because it's that bad. I mean, think about it. They have to put a hazmat suit to take something out of your mouth. That can't be good to leave it there. So we consider taking mercury and detoxing from that. Avoiding and eliminating aluminum from our body. And again, we talked about antiperspirants, nonstick cookware, vaccines. What do we do instead? So I don't use antiperspirants. I do use deodorants. We have deodorant here in my office that works really well. It's like a liquid. It's from our CBD company called Elixinol. It has done a fantastic job. And typically when I've used the natural stuff, it'll work for a day or two and then stop working. You have to keep constantly rotating. This one has worked consistently. So I like the one I have here at the office. You can ask Whitney for it if you'd like. Also on Amazon, you can get Schmidt's and Pit Paste. Pit Paste I've used for a long time. That one works really well. I suggest getting the stick of Pit Paste and not the actual paste that you stick your finger in and have to wipe it on your armpit because the baking soda in there, the concentration of baking soda when you use your finger can actually cause a little bit of irritation. And then just looking at cleaning up your personal care products. My wife is a consultant and advocate for personal care safety, and she promotes a company called Beauty Counter. If you've never heard of Beauty Counter before, I highly suggest checking it out. You can go to beautycounter.com/Georgie Moss and look at her site and see this company. Number one, they wanted high-performing products that were actually safe for the public. Too many people don't understand there's heavy metals, there's arsenic, there's all kinds of bad chemicals in the stuff that we're putting on our face. Moisturizer, shampoo, conditioner, let alone makeup and mascara and all the other things that women use that are awful for our body, awful for our brain, awful for our thyroid and our general health. But if you don't think about these things, you don't know what to look for, how are you going to know? And the EWG, which is a public site that has basically dedicated their site to public education, helping people understand what's healthy and what's not healthy, Beauty Counter has actually partnered with them to make sure that every ingredient that they use, it rates on a 3 or below, which means it's still in the safe range and it still performs. That's my wife's favorite part, is that there's some good stuff out there that just doesn't work very well, and there's stuff that works really well that's really awful for you, and we get the best of both worlds with Beauty Counter. And then the last one here is the flu shots, vaccinations. We talked about the adjuvants, the aluminum, the mercury, but statin medications. And we talked a little bit about this at the Heart Strong workshop, but statin medications block the production of cholesterol in your body. Your body is always doing the right thing at the right time if it's not being interfered with. So if your body's making cholesterol, you have to understand there's a reason for it. Your brain is made of, 60% of your brain is made of cholesterol. So if you start blocking the production of cholesterol through a statin medication, guess what you're doing to your brain? You're robbing it of its nutrients that it needs. You're robbing it of what it needs to be healthy. So people have known, it's been shown that people that take this, their memory starts to go. They have some of those signs we talked about at the beginning, cognitive decline, by taking statin medications. I'm not here to tell you to stop taking statin medications. I'm here to help you understand that that could be causing some issues and you should look into it. So I hope you guys learned a lot here tonight. I know we have a lot we went over. I forgot to even talk about this in the beginning. Whitney's going to laugh at me now because I forgot. But this was a little sheet that you could have followed along. I'm glad I'm telling you now. There are some products in the back. If you don't have this, everybody that's here tonight, we should have emailed this to you. If you did not get that, you can always email us at the front desk. So it's frontdesk@mossfamilywellness.com to get a copy of that worksheet. So there's some good information still on there. But I would also suggest checking us out on our website, mossfamilywellness.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, and make sure that if you're watching this on YouTube, you subscribe to our channel so you can get the latest and greatest information. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Have a wonderful evening.